Live. Okay, we're live. Hello. So I'm just going to do a quick intro. My name is Judy. I'm from NLP Superfest. I'm here as part of BrainLab. It's our second BrainLab, and we're here with our other two directors. So NLP Superfest is a conference that we're holding in October in Melbourne, 3, 4, 5, and we're lucky enough that Judy Rees, who's also going to be in Melbourne, is just going to do a quick demo of Xray listening with us today as part of this webinar and BrainLab. We're also lucky enough to have James Scala, who's in the back there. So he's going to run a couple of games later at the end of it. So if you guys want to just have fun and check it out, maybe next time, like next BrainLab, we'll see if we can get James down again. And just a quick shout out to big thank you to Queen's Collective, which is where we are today. And we're about to get started. So introducing Judy Rees, UK coach, author of co-author of Clean Language, and about to do some Xray listening with us. So here we go. We're pretty excited. And it's up to Judy, and we're live. Great. Cool. Okay, guys, we're live. Thanks, Judy. I'll give it to you.
What I would really like would be to demonstrate what you might call a coaching process, a process where somebody has something in their life that they would like to change. One of the things that is particularly interesting about this process is that you don't have to tell me what the content is. If you don't want to tell the world the real thing you're working on, we can work around that. So, okay. Before we go to the next demonstration, what I'm going to suggest is a few possible things that you guys might want to be paying attention to in this next demonstration. I don't know whether, can you see that PowerPoint screen? Yeah. So a few things that you guys might want to be looking out for while we're doing this next piece of demonstration. Now, one of the things that I like to pride myself on, sounds overblown, but one of the things I like to notice is how many insights per minute my coaching clients get when they go through this process. It's designed to be a very internally lively process. It's not intended to be dull or repetitive or boring. And indeed, my client, I'm afraid I don't know your name yet.
Natasha.
Natasha, how do you do? Lovely to meet you. So Natasha is likely to experience quite a lot of insights, is likely to not experience it as being dull and repetitive, and is like, you know, it's really not designed to be boring. So let's see what Natasha finds as she goes through it. But you guys in the audience, keep track of what you think she's getting in terms of number of insights per minute. Another thing you might like to keep track of is what specifically are the questions I ask. How many questions am I asking? Is it just one or two, or are there lots of them? Is there a structure to how I'm asking the questions? You also might like to pay attention to the client's metaphors. As I was saying, clean language is all about metaphor and working with the client's metaphors. So let's see what happens in terms of the number of metaphors and the kinds of metaphors you notice. One of the reasons I suggested we get the client so that you, the audience, can see as well as me, is so that you can see where the client is looking and what gestures they're making as we go through this process. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, I know James likes to look at lots of body stuff, and so I suspect that the rest of you will be interested in that. Do pay attention to the client's gestures and where they're looking. And that's my suggestions. All sorts of other ideas might be possible. And Natasha, are you up for this? Are you ready for this? Would you like to do this little bit of adjustment so that you can see me, I can see you, and the audience can see you? So get side on to me where Paulina was sitting. Excellent. Now, Natasha, do you have any pressing questions about the process before we start?
No, I'm all good.
Excellent. Have you heard of clean language before, or is this your first experience of it? So, as I say, it's all about you having an interesting time and exploring inside your own mind. It's not about me reaching inside you and fixing you, as some NLP techniques can be. It's a joint venture between the client and the facilitator, in this case me. Obviously, we've only just met, so it's important that you know that you are free at any time to answer questions with "I don't know," or indeed, "I'm not telling you, mind your own business," or in any way you like. If, however, at any point this process is getting boring and we're going round information you already know, please would you let me know, and then we can do it a different way and make it not boring. Is that okay with you?
Of course.
Excellent. So, you've got a change that you would like to make in your life.
Yes.
What would you like to have happen?
I would like to feel more comfortable about selling from the stage. I've got a workshop coming up this Saturday. I'm a gun seller one-on-one, and I'd like to be better at selling in front of rooms. And I just think some of the processes and what I've observed is not me. It's very pitchy, and I would like. I always feel really authentic when I do it. And I've built an amazing business over the last 4 years. I just want to, I guess, improve that.
And when you feel... Sorry, I missed that bit.
I said, I guess. I said, no, I know. I want to improve that.
And when you feel really authentic when you do that, is that now or how you would like to be?
Yeah, I feel authentic right now.
And so when you feel more comfortable selling from the stage, then what happens to authentic?
It's the same.
So you'd like to feel more comfortable selling from the stage. And when you feel more comfortable like that, what kind of comfortable?
The same as while I'm doing the presentation and teaching what I teach. It's almost this feeling that here it comes, I'm going to do the upsell. Yes.
So at the moment there's that feeling of here it comes, I'm going to do the upsell.
Yes.
And what you'd like it to be is the same as when you're doing the presentation, teaching the stuff.
Yes.
And when you're comfortable doing the presentation and teaching what you teach, what kind of comfortable is that?
Fun, lighthearted, easygoing. Yeah.
So fun, light-hearted, easygoing.
Yes.
And when it's comfortable like that, fun, light-hearted and easygoing, whereabouts is it comfortable?
Where in the body? In my head.
Whereabouts in your head?
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle of your head. Whereabouts in the middle of your head?
My brain. Right inside.
Right inside, like that.
Yes.
And is there anything else about that comfortable, right in the middle of your brain, there?
Is there anything else? Makes me giggle.
It makes you giggle, and it's right in the middle of your brain, there. And it's fun, and it's easygoing and light-hearted.
Yes.
And when it's there, in the middle of your brain, fun and light-hearted and easygoing, and it makes you giggle, does it have a size or a shape?
like a little marble.
Mm-hmm. A little
and it's
marble.
spinning.
Spinning.
Yeah.
What kind of marble?
Those glass marbles.
Mm-hmm. A glass marble. Is there anything else about that glass marble?
There's a little swirl in the middle of it, like a red swirl.
The red swirl.
They remind me from the little glass marbles back in Macedonia where I was growing up when the boys were playing.
Mm-hmm. So it's a glass marble with a red swirl, and it's spinning.
Yeah.
Which direction is it spinning?
Clockwise.
Clockwise. And how fast is it spinning?
Fast.
Mm.
No. Fast. I don't know how good.
So it's spinning fast, clockwise, red swirl, glass marble in the middle of your head like that, and it makes you giggle.
Yes.
And what happens? How does that work? What happens just before you giggle?
I imagine it. I visualize it.
Mm-hmm. So you visualize it and you giggle.
Yeah.
Mm. And it's there, and it's like a glass marble with a red swirl, and it's spinning fast clockwise, and it's right in the middle of your head like that. And that's the comfortable when you're doing the presentation.
Yes.
Or teaching the stuff you teach.
Yes.
And what you'd like is to feel comfortable like that when selling from the stage.
Yes.
Mm. And when selling from the stage, at the moment, what happens to comfortable?
It goes tight.
Mm-hmm. So there's you're doing the presentation, you're teaching what you teach, and then there's that feeling of here it comes, the upsell, and it goes tight.
Tight, and I rush. And yes.
Whereabouts does it go tight?
Here in my chest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Whereabouts in your chest? Whereabouts?
In my rib cage.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of tight is that tight when it's in your rib cage like that?
Like that feeling you can't breathe.
Like feeling you can't breathe. And does that have a size or a shape?
It's like a blob. That's splatter.
A blob. Anything else about that blob?
It's messy.
Messy. It's a messy blob. And is there anything else about it? That
Black.
messy blob. It's black. A messy black blob.
Yes.
In your rib cage. And it's tight. Is there anything else about the tight of that blob?
I just want to clear it.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
I just want to clear it.
And it's tight, and it's a blob, messy and black like that. And what would that blob like to have happen?
Leave my body.
It would like to leave your body.
Yes.
And it would like to leave your body. What kind of leave your body?
Like come out.
Come out. What kind of come out?
Like, I don't know, pop it out or something like that. Spit it out.
And it would like to pop out like that, or spit out like that, and leave your body. And what would you like to have happen to that blob?
To be gone.
Mm.
Vanished. Vanished.
To be gone and vanished. What kind of gone and vanished would you like?
To turn into clear and dissipate.
To turn into clear.
Yeah.
And is there anything else about turning to clear like that?
No, it's just gone.
Just gone. And when what you would like is for it to turn into clear like that, is that clear the same or different to the blob popping out or spit out?
No, it just goes away.
It just goes away. Whereas the blob would like to be spat out or to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what you would like is for it to just go away.
Because I don't want to be coughing and splattering like blob.
Yeah. So you don't want to be coughing and spluttering black blob. You just want it to go away. The black blob wants to come out or be spat out like that. And when that's what you would like, and it would like to come out like that, and that little marble spinning in the middle of your head, is there a relationship between that little marble and the black blob?
The good and the evil.
Good and evil. Anything else about that?
No, that's the description. Yeah.
So it's good and evil.
So the marble is the good and the blob is the evil.
And when it's like that, good and evil, and the marble's the good and the blob is the evil, and you'd like the blob to just clear, and the blob would like to come out, and you don't want to be coughing and spluttering black blob, what would the marble like to have happen to the blob?
The marble... Nothing, it's not related.
So it's not related?
No.
So what you would like to have happen is the blob just clear and disappear and be gone?
Yeah.
What needs to happen for the blob to clear like that?
Maybe a visualization that it does.
So maybe a visualization.
Visualization that it does, and take a breath and kind of go, and then it's gone.
So a visualization that it does, take a breath, and then it's gone.
Yes.
And as you do that now, what happens to the blob?
It disappears.
And then what happens?
I'm free.
So it disappears and you're free. And then what happens to the marble?
It keeps spinning fast like before.
And then what happens next time you need to be selling from the stage? You've got the workshop coming up. What happens when you've finished your presentation and you're going to be selling from the stage? What happens then?
I'll take a breath and visualize my marble in my head. Giggle, go into my upsell.
And as you go into your upsell like that, with the marble spinning in your head, then what happens to you?
I feel authentic and fun, and that what I'm doing is serving, and it's congruent.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens to authentic?
It just is.
Mm-hmm. So that's the next time that you're going to be selling from the stage on the workshop. When's the time after that?
The following Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
This Saturday.
So the first time is this Saturday, or the time after that is Saturday?
Yep, both the next 2 Saturdays.
Next 2 Saturdays. Mm-hmm. And on the second Saturday, then
yes.
What happens to the black blob?
It's not there.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens to tight in your chest?
It's also not there. It's not there.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens to the feeling of, here it comes, the upsell?
If it's not there, it's not there.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And then what happens to the workshop?
It's a success.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens to the marble with the red swirl?
It conquers the world.
And the marble conquers the world. And with that marble spinning, the glass marble with the red swirl, spinning clockwork-wise, like that, fast,
mm-hmm. Yes.
And the blob's not there, and the tight is not there in your chest,
yes.
And that feeling of, here it comes the upsell, that's not there, and you feel authentic's just there, and you're serving, and it's congruent, and all of that. When all of that, then what happens to feel more comfortable with selling from the stage?
It happens.
And what difference does knowing all of this make?
It gives it a, how do you explain? Perhaps how I've been picturing it and thinking about it and feeling about it, gives it more of a language around it,
Mm-hmm.
rather than a feeling.
And what difference does that make?
Clarity in what it is, and what else? Explains it.
Mm-hmm. And what difference does that clarity and that explaining it, what difference does that make?
It brings awareness, so then you have choice to move on, and some strategies to do the resourceful thing.
Mm-hmm. And when it's made that difference, is that a good place to end this demonstration?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Turn you around.
Now, I don't know whether other people are experiencing this, but my visual of you guys in the room has completely frozen. I don't know how we can resolve that. I've just got a fixed picture of Natasha now.
Oh.
Have had for the last 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes.
That's right, we can see you though, so that's what's...
Okay. Yep, so that's all right then. Am I still moving?
Yeah.
Okay, before we go to questions from the floor, what I'd love to know is from Natasha how that experience was. What was it like? What did you notice? And was it boring?
No, it wasn't boring. I needed to concentrate a lot on your questions. And so yeah, just needed to focus on what you were saying and just trusting whatever answer was coming up to just say it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So what did everybody else notice during that demonstration? What were you keeping track of, and what did you spot?
When she was talking about metaphors, her insight rate increased.
So what was your tally of her insight rate for the session? How many insights do you reckon she got?
The twice when I was looking, it started off being about 2 or 3 per minute, and then got up to about 4 or 5 when she was talking about the marble in particular.
Now, of course, insights.
Yeah.
Insight. Sorry, go on.
I'm not trained, so I might not have picked up on all the insights.
And insights are a very, very subjective thing. So was anyone else tracking insights in the room? Let's hear a couple of other numbers as to how many insights people thought that they perceived. No one else?
I was probably focusing more about your questions.
Yeah. If we had everybody tracking insights, the typical thing in a room is that the number of insights will vary from 1 or 2 to dozens over the course of a demonstration. So it's a very, very subjective thing. But I think you're right that one of the things that is consistent is that most people would say the density of insights increases when you're in more metaphoric territory than when you're in less metaphoric territory.
Yeah.
So the person who was saying they were doing more tracking of the questions, what did you notice?
That you're repeating the answers word by word, and by doing that, using like her metaphors and the pictures in her head, and like giving them back to her, and then she was, could understand it more, even though you didn't have to understand it, you just repeated the same word.
Yeah, so the same word is important, and the fact that they're her metaphors. So I'm not introducing my own metaphors from the outside. I'm using the client's own metaphors in my questions. So that's a place where this process is quite different to various other NLP processes that work with metaphor. It's very much focused on the client's metaphors. It's also focused on the client's own words. So even when we're not working in metaphor, so as in the session with Paulina, we weren't really working in metaphor, but still the questions were structured around the client's own words. So you use the client's own words as far as possible. What did anyone else notice? Or any questions?
This process, sorry, I've been very noisy. This process seems very similar to active imagination. Have you dealt with that technique at all?
Active imagination. I'm not aware of active imagination as a process. What is it?
it was something that I read that Carl Jung used to do, the psychoanalyst.
No, I don't know about it specifically. I haven't studied Jung at all. However, most traditional psychotherapeutic imagination processes, like NLP processes, tend to introduce the metaphors from the therapist's perspective. So they might take a few ideas from the client, but then the therapist introduces the metaphor. So you'll get someone like Dina Gluberman, who does a process that she calls metaphor therapy, where she does guided imagery, where she, for example, will get the client to imagine themselves on a beautiful beach and various things happen, that kind of stuff. My guess is that active imagination will be that kind of process rather than being based on the client's own metaphors.
Active imagination was, I think, is something you do by yourself, I think, and then you report to the therapist on what you imagine. But yeah, this is about clean talking, so that's nothing.
A self-facilitation process which is quite similar to clean language is one called focusing, whose author has temporarily gone out of my head. I'm suffering from old age, I can tell. There's a guy in America who invented a process called focusing. I feel the need to Google his name, but it'll come back to me. Which is a process in which people explore internally in their own feelings specifically. So rather than explicitly be about metaphor, focusing is about feelings. So it's about noticing what you feel about something, and it is about drawing attention to the stuff that's going on in the body, which in this specific session is quite similar to what Natasha was doing. She was doing a lot of feeling stuff in the body. However, clean language works in all the senses. It doesn't have to be felt. I think it's frequently in coaching at its most useful when it works with physical feelings, but it doesn't have to be. So focusing is one to look up if you're looking for things that are a bit similar to it. Certainly I've been involved in this field for 10 years and nobody's ever mentioned active imagination as being something similar before. I'll obviously go away and look it up, but I suspect it probably isn't, or somebody would have said something about it before.
Another question, Judy.
Mm-hmm.
It's obvious that the client is having some fantastic realizations as the process goes along. But I'm just wondering, do you have any tips on what you use to know when the questioning and how you know when the process are over? Are you following certain cues, or do you have a certain format you use to take the questioning in a certain direction?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that's interesting about this process is that at its most basic, it looks incredibly simple. You know, there's a fixed number of questions, about 12 questions. You ask them about the metaphors, jobs are good 'un. But actually, there is a structure to why I'm asking what I'm asking. It's based around a thing called the Framework for Change by Penny Tompkins and James Lawley. And it's not a thing that you can learn just instantly like that. For most people who want to use this as a standalone change technique, you're looking at spending at least 4 or 5 days at a workshop, because there's a lot to learn. And the most important stuff to learn has to do with knowing how to handle things when it gets a bit intense. One of the things that's interesting about clean language is that it can go incredibly deep, incredibly quickly. So when you are very first experimenting with this technique, there's a rule that I introduce, and it is purely about experimenting with this when you're first starting, which is pay attention to the good stuff the metaphors for the stuff that people like and want more of, and ask questions about those. By doing that, you'll minimize the danger of people getting upset and stressed and weepy, which can be thoroughly unpleasant for both your client and for you. One of the things when you first start getting into noticing the person's own words, the metaphors that everybody's using in everyday conversation, and we're using something like 6 metaphors a minute in ordinary English. The metaphors are just completely around us all the time. We're swimming in a sea of metaphors, but like goldfish swimming in a bowl of water, we don't notice the water. When you first start paying attention to metaphors, the first metaphors you'll see and hear will be the ones that are metaphors for unpleasant stuff. People have a great tendency to use very vivid metaphors about their problems and their difficulties. It's like I'm going in ever-decreasing circles. It's like I'm banging my head against a brick wall. It's like I'm trapped in a hell of my own making. It's like I'm up to my neck in shit. All these very vivid metaphors are metaphors for the unpleasant stuff. I'd strongly suggest you don't ask questions about those. Instead, do various things to get a metaphor for the good stuff and ask questions about that as your practice point, as your starting point for practice. And in the activity that I'm going to suggest you do in the room in a moment, I'll give you a way of doing that. Just get yourself started on practice. Just sort of reinforce that with a story. A good friend of mine, John Morgan, tells the tale of when he first read some of my stuff and started playing with it immediately, because he's that kind of person. He loves to play with anything new he gets his hand on. And he started asking about his then girlfriend's metaphor for her problem. Within about 2 or 3 minutes, she was in tears. Within 5 minutes, he was in tears. And within a month, they were no longer boyfriend and girlfriend. It's not nice, because you can go very deep very quickly. So that's my biggest tip, is structure the thing so you go for the good stuff. Does that answer the question? I feel like I've gone off on one rather, so pull me back.
Yes.
What else would you like to know?
Just also the structure you're using. So with the marble, for instance, how do you know how deep you've gone and when you've got, or when the client has got information and when you need to move on to another subject? How do you need to keep going with that? When like that's the structure around the question as well.
Mm. Yeah. Again, the detail of that, I would teach you in a longer course. For example, I teach a course called Advanced Metaphor Mastery, which is 10 lessons over 10 weeks and lots of practice in between, and that would cover those kind of subjects. But the sort of rule of thumb, have I asked enough questions, is could I draw it? So if somebody asked me to grab some coloured pens and draw what I knew, could I draw it? At that point, I think, well, I know I've got enough there. I could draw a diagram of that. I'll move on to the next thing. So when I say could I draw it, I suppose I mean a diagram. I don't mean necessarily a full colour photo style picture. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for enough detail so that I could draw it. And once I've got that, then I move on to the next topic. I try as far as possible to keep my questions focused on what the person wants. So in this case, we had a very short statement. I would like to feel more comfortable about selling from the stage. And then there were a few bits of clarification about that, but that fundamental statement, I would like to feel more comfortable with selling from the stage, I try to keep that in the center of my vision at all times, and know that when I ask about something else, I'm asking about it in relation to that outcome. So the marble, as I have it mapped, is a metaphor for the kind of comfortable that Natasha would like. So we know that she would like to be comfortable in the way where she's got the marble spinning in the middle of her head, and she'd like that when she's selling from the stage, and selling from the stage next Saturday and the Saturday after. So that's what she would like. So that's sort of the general drift of what I'm doing, but there's a huge amount of detail below that, which there isn't time to go into on this call. Any other questions?
Would you like that to do the demonstration and the exercises? And have a go? Yeah? Cool. No, I think they're all good. They'd love to hear your instructions on how to have a go at it with each other.
Okay. Let me just briskly then grab some references. I just want to do references because I know some people will be interested in references. So as I was saying, there's a course that I'm running starting after the Superfest in October called Advanced Metaphor Mastery. If anyone is interested, there's a link there, bit.ly/add-met-master. 2 books I'd strongly recommend. Obviously, I recommend my own book, Clean Language, Revealing Metaphors and Opening Minds, by Wendy Sullivan and myself. Another good one is Clean Approaches for Coaches by Marion Way, which came out last year. Really, really excellent book about using clean language in a coaching context. So, practice activity. As I say, the key thing is about setting this up so that you're going with something which is good stuff. And we're also going to cheat. Rather than by sort of teasing a metaphor out of the person or noticing a metaphor that the person is using in casual conversation, we're going to start by asking your partner for a metaphor. So, indeed, let's do that while we're all together. When you are learning at your best, you are like what? Now, everyone's going to have a different answer to that question. When you are learning at your best, you are like what? How are you doing? Has everybody got an answer to that question of some kind? Give me a wave if you've got one. Not yet, few people. So is somebody who's got an answer to that question willing to sing their answer out? When you're learning at your best, you're like what? Gentleman in the yellow T-shirt and the black jacket. I saw your wave first, so come on. When you're learning at your best, you're like what?
I guess I'm like flying in an airplane.
Like flying in an airplane.
Like when you take off, and it's like when you're about to like actually take off, you know, from the ground, and you're like, you know, it's like I don't know. It's kind of like shooting off like in a rocket, I guess. Like feeling.
Right, shooting off in a rocket like that. So that's great. That's one. Who's not like that? Who's different to that?
Talking like a tiger.
Sorry, was that like a tiger? What kind of tiger?
Tiger.
A normal tiger. We all know what one of those like that. A normal tiger. So who's different to that?
I feel like an electric sponge.
Like an electric sponge? What kind of electric sponge?
It's taking in information. Lots of these, you know, ideas popping up because of the new information.
So an electric sponge and taking off like a rocket and a normal tiger. And everyone in the room will have a different answer to that question. When you're learning at your best, you're like what? And of course, it doesn't have to necessarily be a metaphor, a sort of big, obvious metaphor. For some people, when they're learning at their best, it's like they're concentrating really hard. And that's their answer to the question. So it doesn't have to be a metaphor. It's just a good way of getting started for an activity. So whatever it is for you is fine. And that will help your partner get started. So when you team up with someone, the first thing to ask is, when you're learning at your best, you're like what? And you get a quick answer. And then what you do is you've got 2 questions that you can ask. as many times as you like and in any order. What kind of X? And is there anything else about X? And X there represents any of the words that your partner has used. Now, does that process make sense as far as it goes? Yeah. In terms of the setup for this activity, one of the ways I love to do this is in a speed clean format, where I get people in 2 rows, and they basically get 2 minutes each way, and then you change partners. But I'm not going to be there to supervise you, so you can do it however you like. But I would strongly recommend you just do 2 or 3 minutes with one person, and then move around and do 2 or 3 minutes with another, and just be finding out about loads and loads of different people in the room. It can be this activity is actually a really good one to use as an icebreaker at the beginning of an event. So I've used it many times that way, and it can be really good fun.
Fantastic. Thanks, Judy.
So in all of that, is there anything else you guys need from me?
Good. I think they're all good. Thank you so much, Judy. That was really fun.
So I'm massively looking forward to seeing you in the flesh in October. Have a lovely time till then, and see you anon.
See you.
Thanks a lot. Good then.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Can I get you all to stand up?